Happy holidays! If you don't know me, I'm Olivia and I'm the Witch of Wonderlust. Today I'm drinking this pumpkin chai by Tazo. It's actually one of my favorite holiday drinks. It was a tradition with my mom and I that on the really cold, early December mornings in Colorado, especially when I was still going to high school, she would make me a cup of this exact tea and we would hang out in the mornings and drink the tea, and yeah, it was just a good way to start my mornings when it was all snowy and cold out. But there's a link for it in the description below. I think it's seasonal, so I don't know if it will be available all year around, but I hope it will be. I stock up on it when it's like on clearance or something, and I just like take 40 of them and keep them until this time of year. So in this video, I'm just gonna go over winter solstice, a brief overview of ways that it's celebrated, and a couple different simple ways that you can celebrate it yourself. Now, keep in mind, this is just things that I've come to find in my own reading and talking to other people who have celebrated it in their own ways and have shared their experiences and their traditions with me. So by no means am I an expert in any of this. So if I get any of this wrong, feel free to kindly correct me in the comments below. Okay, so personally, I've always celebrated Christmas, but I've always been curious and fascinated by other cultures and other beliefs and other people's way of celebrating the winter solstice. So in my searches and sources, huge amount of different traditions all around the world. I've gotten from everywhere from Christmas and Hanukkah to Soyal, I think I'm pronouncing that right, that is celebrated by the Hopi people. Yalda, celebrated in Iran, Lucia, celebrated in Sweden, and the Dongje festival, celebrated in East Asia, just to name a few. And I hope that I pronounced those at least somewhat correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. I swear I tried. But I did find that all of these had a lot in common. Communal celebrations, a lot of parties or get-togethers or big festivals with a bunch of different people. It was usually gift giving. There's a lot of tradition and a lot of rituals behind everything. A lot of food. There's always so much food, and bringing light into the longest and darkest time of the year. And that part, I think there's really something to that. In all of these, we see patterns of similarities. Not that I'm gonna go into a deep history or mythology of the winter solstice, because there is plenty, and even a simple Google search will give you a plethora of information. So midwinter is just an interesting time of year in general. People act pretty different, and it's probably because the earth, the whole environment, just undergoes these dramatic changes. An interesting idea that I came across was that the reason that some people suffer from seasonal affective disorder is because now, as people in the modern age, we don't really go with the flow of the season, such as sleeping in longer because the nights are longer, eating the foods that are in season, continuing to be super busy, and continuing that hustle and bustle of the modern day life when winter is really a time of just stillness and rest. Now, this idea I read in the book Yule by Susan Prezenecker. I probably butchered that. It's a Wiccan-based book. Overall, it's a pretty good read, so if that's something you're interested in, I'll leave a link for that below. That's just an idea that I read that I thought was really interesting, and something that I kind of put together was maybe the reason we should be sleeping in longer for the winter days is because originally food was more scarce in the winter, so sleeping longer and not going out and foraging or going out and working on the farms would save a lot of those calories that we would probably be burning if we were continuing this hustle and bustle of this modern day life. But these are all just things that I was thinking about. I mean, I didn't do any in-depth research to see if any of these things were completely true, but now I'm probably gonna do that. But they were just interesting ideas. If you are wanting to know more about like what's in season around you in your area, then there's actually a website. It's called seasonalfoodguide.org, but I'll leave a link for that in the description below as well. It's really nifty because it helps you find out what's in season in your area any time of year. So winter being a time of stillness and reflection, there's a point that I see brought up in almost every source when it comes to celebrating the winter solstice at all. It's a great thing to meditate on during this time of year, practicing stillness, reflecting on the year that's almost over, and taking time to be comfortable with just yourself and your own thoughts and silence, which, especially nowadays, that's really difficult for a lot of us. I'm sure all of us could use a little bit of that, especially with finals just ending if you're in school, or the general chaotic time of this year, because the holidays tend to get kind of crazy. Okay, so for some simple ways to celebrate, whether you're a practitioner or not, or you're practicing in secret, all of these things you can pretty much do. So I'm sure I'm gonna go over some pretty obvious things, but just bear with me because these are all really good ways you can celebrate. So cooking and baking. There's nothing like having that homemade food that your dad used to make all the time, that one dish that everybody was crazy about, or maybe there was that one baking good that your mom or your grandma was just known for. I mentioned before, you can take any of those things in your ingredient list of any dishes that you like, whether that be something that you've had since you were a kid or something brand new that you're trying out this year. Look at the correspondences of each ingredient in that recipe and see what kind of magic you can literally cook up. Yeah, I made that joke. So making any kind of dish, you can really make this for luck or blessing or protection, abundance, love. They're all really good things to enchant a dish for, especially something that you're going to be sharing with a bunch of people. Same thing goes for drinks, so homemade hot chocolate, cozy cup of chai, or something like hot cider or mulled wine. I've even had people gift me fruitcakes that I used as a doorstop for the rest of the year. It was a joke, don't worry, they didn't expect me to eat it. It's fine. Creating or decorating an altar. Now, I know that some of you practicing in secret are like, I can't do that. But I mean, you kind of can, because decorating is a really big part of the holidays and of celebrating winter solstice. When you're decorating your altar, anything that makes you feel wintry, anything that reminds you of peace, of calmness, the only limit that you have is the space of your choosing. Using the colors that are associated with winter, green, red, white, gold, sometimes silver. So again, going back to the Yule book by Susan Pezenecker. I'm just gonna say Susan P. I'm dyslexic and I'm stressed. Going back to the book Yule by Susan P., according to her book, green represents the evergreen that thrives throughout the winter, abundance, wealth, and new beginnings. The gold is the solar energy, so bringing the sun back into the world. It also represents those gifts, prosperity, wealth. The red is fire, it's warmth, it's passion. It's represented here for winter as that life source that keeps us warm and alive, and the light that is illuminating the darkness in the winter. So the white is the clean slate. It's getting rid of the old and bringing in the new. It's peace, it's calmness, and it represents the silence and snow. So really you can use any of these colors for anything on your altar. Candle colors, the cups, dishes, or bowls that you're using for any of your workings or offering dishes, crystals, the altar cloth, any of those things work. And if you just use those colors, then it'll spruce it up for winter solstice anyway. Even using the associated foliage, so things like mistletoe, ivy, holly, rosemary, spruce, cedar, pine. You can use those to decorate your altar or your space as well. But just keep in mind if you're using those live plants that some of those are toxic when ingested, so just keep any pets or small children away. And there's nothing wrong with using fake ones. If you really want to use them, you're worried about any kids or pets getting to them. The next one is music. This doesn't just have to be the holiday music. I know that everybody doesn't love holiday music. I personally really like the classic Christmas music. Don't come for me. Any kind of music that puts you in that winter feel. Play music in your space. You can use it to keep your spirits high and merry, or you can use it to calm everything down. If you play an instrument, you can either play an instrument at a party, share that gift with everybody, you can sing, or just allow yourself to create something. Just sit down with your instrument and do that, or just sing while you're cleaning or something. If you want to be daring and extra merry, you can also get a group together or join a group and go caroling. Okay, dancing. I might be biased, but I think dancing is one of the greatest forms of celebration and expression no matter what the time of year. Even though nowadays everybody says, oh, I'm not good at music, I'm not good at dancing. It's not really being good about it, it's about expressing yourself. So at the end of the day, you're just trying to invoke a certain emotion or bring yourself joy out of doing something like that. Personally, I like to just turn on a song that naturally is moving me and just move to it how I feel moving to it. Going out and dancing, just swaying side to side, choreographing a whole dance, or just remake that classic dance to Jingle Bell Rock from Mean Girls. All of it counts in my book. The next way to celebrate is doing arts and crafts. Personally, crafting is a really special one for me, especially around this time of year for a lot of reasons. My mom and I used to make a lot of our own decorations, from like those little garlands to fake snowmen, and we had these like green socks that we filled with those filler beads and hot glued little googly eyes and like pom-poms for noses on them. I actually painted like those mini canvases with Alex. First Christmas I moved away from my family, and I didn't really have any friends after I moved out here, along with Bob Ross, and spent the whole day in our apartment. A lot of the time I would make gifts for people because, especially after moving out, buying gifts wasn't really an option. I have a video of 5 simple low-key magical gift ideas, but in the comments you'll find a bunch of other really good ideas from the rest of the Wonderlust coven, so check those out as well. There are so many winter solstice crafts. We have a whole internet full of tutorials on how to make them all. I don't have time or even daylight. Like, it's already getting dark to show you how to make them all, but it's just some ideas. You can make wreaths, garlands, you can make your own ornaments, you can make your own candles, you can knit or crochet or embroider something if that's something you want to try or maybe you're already good at. Paintings or art inspired by winter. And I really like those little bird feeder wreaths. Like, they look like little Christmas wreaths, but they're made out of bird feeders outside if you have trees or a place to hang those. I'll leave a link for tutorials for most of those down below. Whatever I can find, I will leave a link for you. Okay, finally, the Yule Log. This is a classic, and now that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina highlighted this tradition, I get questions on it all the time. Now, the funny thing and unfortunate thing is I have never used a Yule Log. Unless you count the ones that you can eat. Yeah, those are good. But I've never had an actual fireplace that I could do that with, or a fire pit that I could use a Yule log with. So if you happen to have a fireplace or you have a friend that is happy to participate in this, then the way this works is that you find a dry log, you anoint it with different kinds of oils or some kind of liquor, and most of the time this would be like whiskey or mead. Then you would thank it for bringing in warmth and light in the darkest and coldest time of year. Then you would carve sigils of protection and blessings into it, and then write any petitions or wishes, and you would tie them onto the log so that it would burn, release it into the universe. So you could kind of get pretty crafty, and I bet you anything, if some of you do these Yule logs, you better post a photo, because I feel like some of these are going to look really, really pretty. You could get pretty crafty with this. Traditionally, the log is lit the night before winter solstice, and then people would just stay up with it, and they would tell stories, they would put blessings and wishes into the fire, and it's believed that if the Yule log lasted all night long, then it was a good blessing. Like I said, this was not ever a tradition that I partook, yes. If you have used Yule logs, that was just what I read on the internet and in a couple of books and what some other people told me about their past tradition. Okay, so next one is divination. So winter is a great time to do divination because it is so still, it's so quiet, and that allows you to open yourself up and really listen to your higher self, your ancestors, your spirits, your deities that you may work with. Now's the time to bust out the tarot cards, get your pendulum, maybe you scry in a black mirror or maybe some dark hot chocolate. I don't know. Even the fire and the smoke you can scry in. Next is meditation. As mentioned earlier, winter's a time of rest and self-reflection, and depending on what your level of experience with meditation is, this can go anywhere with simply just focusing on the breath for a couple minutes, or listening to your environment and noticing things around you, to meditating on full prompts that you've made for yourself that you feel necessary to really ponder on. Going even deeper into that, it's a really good time for shadow work as well. Okay, next is journaling. Personally, I think journaling is a different form of meditation. So when I'm using a certain prompt to meditate, I find it just easier to journal because then I can physically put it down somewhere instead of just kind of have it up here. This doesn't just allow you to keep track of your thoughts and your experiences, feelings, ideas, but also writing down is a really good form of actual manifestation as well. If you're not really sure where to get started, I have a couple of different prompts that you can use as a base. What have I learned this past year? How am I different from the beginning of this year and now? What is in my life that no longer serves me? And what should I be letting go of? What are the things that make me unhappy? What are the things that bring me joy? 3 things I want to do, places I want to go, things I want to see, or things I want to become next year. What was the overall energy of this last year? What do I want my upcoming year to look like, to feel like to me? What are 5 ways that I can become closer to the life that I want most? And if you have any other prompts that you really like or that you're thinking of, then drop them in the comments. I'd love to see them. Storytelling. This can come in many forms. However you like to tell stories or how you just like to listen to them. Just telling stories about their past holidays and traditions, reading or listening to a story being read straight from a book. My favorite, watching the classic movies every single year that give you that holiday feel. The next is rest. It's got the longest nights, the shortest days, and everything is just still. The earth is asleep and resting, and maybe it's just because I really love a warm, cozy bed and heavy blankets. The whole point of winter is to reflect and rest. So again, this totally depends on your preferences and your lifestyle. Just taking the time to rest could be anything from sleeping in a couple extra hours, or just taking the time right after you wake up to take a few extra moments to just really enjoy that stillness and like the coziness and the warmth of being under the blankets, the comfiness of like a slept in bed. Every winter solstice celebration that I've found, there's a celebration, there's a tradition of bringing the light back in, whether that means invoking the sun back into the sky or literally just lighting up and illuminating the darkness. So again, this totally ranges to what you have access to, what your ability is, and what your lifestyle and your preferences are. You can just buy a new candle and light up a nice, cozy little dark spot of your house, or set up some lights in or around your home. Maybe grab some friends or some family and drive through those neighborhoods that you know set up like those crazy decorations. Go take walks through those light displays that some cities set up every single year for the public. I used to do this with the Denver Zoo lights every year with my friends, and for some reason we always chose like the coldest night of the year. Okay, lastly is traditions. This one's obvious, but it's a core. Everybody kind of already celebrates winter solstice, whether you know it or not, and so you don't need to have this giant full-out ritual. You don't need any of the stuff that you saw in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. If you're having fun and you are in that winter spirit, you're already celebrating. Dive deep into those traditions that you and your family have, or if you're like me and you moved away, it's a really good time to gather some of your new friends and implement new traditions, try new recipes, and talk about the traditions that all of you had growing up. If you have any other ideas, or you just want to share your own traditions, leave them in the comments below. Or if you have any crafts that you made, a pretty journal page, some recipes that you made, a pretty light display, or just a really good photo at your own winter solstice party or a family gathering, then go ahead and use the hashtag WonderlustCoven on Instagram. I really love seeing some of the things that you post, because it really does make me feel like I'm a part of a community that is just really welcoming. If you want to join the Wonderlust Coven, then go ahead and hit subscribe and you're all set. See, I quit my job and now I'm a real YouTuber. So that's all for this video. I wish the best for you for your holidays and enjoy the last of this year. I know that it was kind of rough for most of us, but everything is better with a little bit of humor and humility. Easier said than done, but I promise. I can't wait to see what y'all share in the comments and on that hashtag. You all share some of the most amazing stuff, just in general. Share some of the small, quiet moments to the loud laughter of the parties. Share some of the things that you got for gifts, but that's all for this video. As always, I will see you in the next one. Best of luck. Be kind to each other, and may your gods treat you as you've treated others. Happy solstice. Bye.